Welcome back in 3HL 104.5 The Zone, broadcasting live from Dallas, Texas. We've had a lot of brisket down here.
I love me some brisket.
Right?
Tender, as long as it's tender.
You know what else I love?
What?
Margaritas. And they got some good ones
Briskets
here.
and margaritas.
Brett Doherty, Don Davenport, Ron
Living
Slate.
our
Yeah,
best life.
she complained about having a skinny margarita, but she had a couple or more.
Maybe 3.
Yeah. Paul Finebaum joins us at the table. Paul, what's up? How are you?
Brett, I'm doing great, and man, just to be on this great station, and especially to be on with the Slay Man. I mean, I don't know what I've done wrong.
Does Slay offer you content from time to time?
I used to have respect for this operation. I worked for this company at one point, and I'm like going,
yes, you did.
How in the world did the great tradition of Nashville radio, especially at the Zone, end up with you as a featured co-host?
This is what happens when you leave side doors open. That's why you check all doors before going to sleep. You pop up and you got me laying in your house.
I mean, when they during the year you're doing SEC and they say, we got Ron Slay. I go, oh my goodness. do I have to hear about when he was a football player at some podunk high school?
See what I'm saying? See, he know it's cool.
So
it's
Paul,
a dig, but it's a state
this is
championship.
great.
He knows it too.
Oh, my God.
Ron Slay
Okay, our next speaker here at the Ron Slay Roast will be Don Davenport.
Ron Slay
you
led
know.
the state of Tennessee in receiving for 3 weeks.
Yes.
That's right. And you
Yes.
know why he quit football? He didn't like the contact.
No.
That's what it was. He didn't like not being in control of the contact.
Why would you have to run into someone with pads when you can be on the basketball court and just feel contact on contact? That's what I'm looking for.
This is where we are.
That's what I'm looking for.
Well,
There we
I
go.
think had you gone the football route, you might have made something out of yourself.
It would have been better off.
Paul Finebaum with us.
I still don't know what you did on the basketball court. I mean,
Who cares about that? Who cares about that?
Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So Nick Saban yesterday with the quote of the day on the SEC Network. What kind of tickles me is all, and I love that he said tickles me, is all of these people asking questions about how Texas always ran the conference they were in. They're not going to run the SEC. How do you think the Texas program will adjust to the pressure cooker week in, week out that is the grind of the SEC?
Well, I think it's interesting that Saban said that. I remember sitting on a plane with him once in like 2015 or 14 or whatever year it was, and asking him about almost taking the Texas job. And the reason he said he turned it down, by the way, he later denied they ever offered, but that's Nick Saban, is because he said, I don't want to have to deal with like 30 billionaires. Yeah. And that's Texas. That's bigger. I mean, I was in Austin 2 weeks ago, and their view of themselves is pretty legendary. And that's what he's talking about, the fact that Texas this is not like being rushed, at the KA house, and you're a pledge, and you go through the routine. Texas has come into this league going, okay, guys, this is the way it's going to be, and that's what Saban is referring to. And I think the fact that Texas is going to be so good will make that argument a little more difficult. And
their schedule's easy. I mean, I say easy, right? Nothing in the SEC is easy.
It's easier.
The SEC. I mean, I don't know if you had the commissioner on yet, but I mean,
No.
we just draw into a hat. It's all fair. I mean, that's how you got the Georgia-Texas game on the premier weekend of the year. So anyway, I'm not concerned about Texas.
So how different will it be from an Oklahoma perspective, do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, Oklahoma people are a little more humble. So they're not coming in here thinking that the name of the league ought to be changed. Don't forget, I mean, why did all those schools leave the Big 12? Because Longhorn Network, Texas had to be different, and I don't see that as an issue. But Oklahoma's ready. They may not have a vintage Oklahoma team this year, but they're still pretty good.
Paul Finebaum with us on 3HL.
Last thing on Texas, Sark. He's the right guy to be in charge there, right? Like, why has he been able to have success and get the recruiting right and do things that maybe the last couple Texas coaches couldn't?
Well, because I just think he's prepared. I mean, I lived in Alabama a long time, and I've heard people refer to Sark as a Nick Saban protege. Oh, really? The guy worked for Pete Carroll. I mean, who was one of the greatest coaches of all time. I know he kind of got forgotten about because Pete Carroll made the mistake of retiring or being fired on the same 24-hour cycle as Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. So nobody even realizes he's gone except the new coach out in Seattle. But both Kiffin and Sark tutored under Pete Carroll, who was just a legendary figure. And I think he was a head coach at Washington. He was a head coach at USC. Did he get fired after being publicly drunk? Yes, that is a fact.
Yep.
Did he own it?
Yeah, he did, and I think that's why people are so. I mean, we've all had our encounters with Sark in the aftermath, and he was very honest and open about it. And he went to Alabama and did a really good job, and he's back. But he should be back because he's an outstanding coach.
Real quick, the relationship you have with Nick Saban. It comes off on screen, behind the scenes, when you see you two interact. What does him stepping away mean? What did it mean as far as your career and the relationship you guys were able to make over those years?
It happened on the night of January 10th. And they screamed in my ear, Nick Saban is retiring. And I took a break. I put my head down. And I think clinically I was dead for about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, we've all lost loved ones.
Right.
But outside of personal family losses, it's the worst moment of my life because Nick Saban made my career. I mean, I'm not kidding. I went in 2006, and I was working for one of these big radio companies. I left 2 weeks after Nick Saban was hired to go to work for WJOX, which are they still part of your company?
Yes,
Yep.
sir. Yep.
Our ratings quadrupled, men 25-54, in 1 year. And all of a sudden, people started recognizing me as something other than, a bald guy that went to school at the University of Tennessee. So, I mean, we became very close friends. Saban did not like the media, but he picked out like one or two people, and those are the only people he talked to. Right. And I happened to be in that. And it was great. And we became very close, and he confided in me. Then he won 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 national championships, and he forgot my name.
How it usually happens.
But we've always had a good relationship.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even though we've had some contentious moments. I mean, I challenged him in 2015 at SEC Media Days. I interrupted him 3 times on the stage. He had a couple of players got arrested, and he did not suspend them. And I asked him why not. And finally, I knew on the 3rd time he'd lose it, which of course I wanted him to. And it was like one of the great moments in SEC Media Days history.
Yeah.
But he finally told me to shut up, like I was a little kid. And he said, "If you don't shut up, you're going to your room." And by the way, what do you do then?
Yeah.
Do you argue back and risk getting slapped on national television? No.
So at what point did you understand that this was a special thing between you and him? And how did you balance, like, friendship and work responsibility?
I had the unique advantage of knowing him before he got there. I had a friend who was one of his assistants at LSU, and we were thrown together once. So Saban's very old school. I was at a cocktail party once early on. I mean, it was like hundreds of people. He saw me. He turned his back and literally talked to me for 30 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, why is he talking to me? You know why? Because he didn't want to talk to anyone else. That meant 500 pictures, and he could just.
Yes.
And by the way, he doesn't talk; he lectures, and he doesn't say, "Hey, Paul."
It's not a conversation.
I know I got to go, but quick story. I had a detached retina about 15 years ago. It can be a really serious thing, and it kind of went haywire.
Yeah.
And they took me to the hospital. They took me in for tests. They thought I had a brain tumor. Okay. So Saban heard about it, and he calls me. Hey, buddy, hope you're doing okay. So thanks, Coach. I saw him 2 weeks later. By the way, they did a CAT scan for a brain tumor, okay?
Yeah.
I didn't have one. 2 weeks later, I see him. He goes, "Buddy, how you doing?" I said, "Fine, Coach." He said, "How's your shoulder doing?" I mean, he went from a brain tumor to a separated shoulder. I mean, he wasn't listening to a word he said when he was calling me. Yeah. But that's Nick Saban, though. But he's just the most unique guy I've ever been around. And how is he going to do on College Game Day? I don't know. Nick Saban likes people who are prepared.
Yeah.
He likes people. You think he's going to get that with that crew?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, top notch.
I mean, I'm not trying to
there.
blow up my network's biggest show, but that could be pretty weird.
Well, real quick, who's the next Nick Saban, coaching-wise?
Well, we already have it. Kirby Smart is literally Nick Saban. I think they're the same person, except Kirby Smart is 47 years old. Saban at 47 wasn't that successful. It all happened later. It started to happen. Don't misunderstand me. But I think Kirby is he's a serial killer. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that but I mean, you know what I'm talking. How many guys did you play with, Ron? I mean, they were deadly. They had the blood pressure of a cat burglar.
They got something different.
And that's who he is. I mean, he's. I was in a locker room once while he was the assistant coach. They invited me, the coaches for the A-Day. Yeah. Put on the stupid outfit.
Yeah,
By the way, I really thought I was going to call plays.
Call a couple plays.
I mean, I barely got a free Coke. But Kirby at halftime is in there. Can I say, MFing the team?
Yeah.
Dog cussing the team.
Right.
And a guy tipped me on the shoulder. And I look back, and he goes, "He didn't learn that from me." And it was Nick Saban.
Wow.
I've never heard a more vulgar coach in my life. That's who he is. I mean, he is ruthless, and I love him for it because he's the best coach in college football.
Yeah.
There he is. He's Paul Finebaum, the legend.
Good
Thank you
stuff.
for the time, brother.
Yeah,
And we'll be watching
I've
all
been
week.
trying to get on this show since Clay Travis left.
We got a great feeling right, doesn't he?
I was here for that. Here he is, Paul Finebaum. More 3HL next on 104.5 The Zone.